let's get real for a minute. I want to dive into a question that I myself really struggled with because, let's face it, every man struggles with this, and that is learning to ask for help. Why is it so hard? It's one of the crux of what prevents us from moving forward. It's the crux of what keeps us stuck. It's the crux of us trying to change our life. I want to share an analogy of how life is supposed to work for a man. And it's the resistance, or so boldly to say the ignorance to this process, that keeps us where we are. It keeps us in our patterns from where we are. And it keeps the stories that we tell ourselves in a reality that, yes, this is the truth. This isn't just a story. This is how life is happening to me and not for me. And so I want to tell you a story about a dojo membership. Now, I'm not a member of a dojo, but I know many friends that are. And this analogy works great for how life is supposed to work, this key ingredient that we're missing. So if you buy a dojo membership, you initially get really excited. You're like, yes, I'm going to be a black belt. This is it. This is like the New Year's resolution feeling. This is my year. Everything's going to get better. But just like a gym membership, owning it doesn't actually do anything. The process is pretty easy, but the work is still pretty hard. And owning a gym membership is one of those weird things where you're like, well, I can't cancel it because then I'm giving up. But I might as well just keep paying even though I'm not using it. It's this real small story that starts. And letting them hold 3 or 4 months later, you're still paying for a gym membership that you're not using. But back to the dojo. If you own a dojo membership and you see growth, because it's measured in colors, it's measured in people going in there and growing from where they started to where they are, and you don't go to that dojo is going to have the opposite effect of what you wanted. It's going to magnify everything that's wrong in your life. It's going to magnify and make you feel really insecure about who you are. Like, you know what? This just proves I suck. This is why I'm not a good dad. This is why I don't get what I want, because I'm not them. I'm not that guy that can go to the dojo every week and grow and level up in the belts. I'm not that guy. So you know what? I might as well just stay on the sidelines. That thought is only going to permeate you more to be stuck. Now, the opposite is just equally as true. What happens if you did go to the dojo? Now, in the dojo, there's the mat where you're sprawling week after week after week. This is how I explain the mat. Going to the mat is the most important step of the entire membership, because showing up on the days you don't want to, the days where you're like, you feel like an imposter, the days where you just want to go back and eat ice cream or Oreos or watch Netflix, whatever feeling you want to do, and saying, fuck you, I'm going to the dojo, that feeling, that choice to go to the mat is really powerful. Because once you're on the mat, this is what we're missing in life. There's the first step. You go to the mat, you think, oh, I got this. Exercise, you size the guy up, you start sprawling. Next thing you know, your ass is on the ground, and you're like, what the hell just happened? Well, let me tell you what happened. You decided to go to the mat. You went in there with this arrogance that, I got this. I don't need maybe to ask for help. I can do this because this is what men do. But the reality is, you going to the mat each week, you're probably going to get your ass handed to you and your ass knocked onto the mat multiple times. And you're still, until you realize this one pivotal moment that, you know what, there's probably a way to prevent this. I don't need to get my ass handed to me every week. I don't need to get a leg swept 100 times. There's an actual process to avoid it. There's probably a block that I can incorporate. And you do this one thing. You ask help from people ahead of you. You find people that have what you need, that have already figured out the secret to that skill, and you ask them, hey, how do you avoid the leg sweep? I keep getting my ass handed to me. They tell you, do these 3 things, and you're like, wow, is it that simple? You're like, yeah, it's that simple. Next time you go to the mat, you don't get your ass handed to you, but you still go in there with humility, because here's another truth. It's not the leg sweep, it's something else. And this process repeats. That life continues to give things you don't know the solutions to. Our inability to ask for help from people ahead of us, so the people that need and have what we need, that is what keeps us stuck. That is what keeps us in the pattern, and that's what keeps the cycle of whatever we're living in those patterns. Now, you've asked for help. You understand the leg sweep. Here is the second component of going to the mat of how it works. You've asked for help from people ahead of you, but you also notice there's a guy just kind of like you who just got started 3 weeks ago. And he's kind of a little bit maybe arrogant. He's going to the mat with, I got this, but he's also getting leg swept 100 times. And you're like, you know what? I can help him. Maybe he's not ready for me to ask for help, for him to ask me help, but I can go in back and help him because I know exactly what he's feeling. I can help shortcut that learning for him. And you go back to help him teach, or you help teach him what you were sucking at in your life. It's this process, going to the mat when you don't want to, learning to ask for help from the things that you get your ass knocked down for, and then also helping people behind you that need to go, that need to learn those traits. It's this process for asking for help that we don't understand. We think because we don't understand this dojo analogy, that us not asking for help is just, it's okay. We don't need to ask for help. We can just live in silence. Well, the problem is when you're living in silence is, while no one can physically see you getting your ass handed to you, in your mind, you're knocking yourself in your ass 100 times a day, if not a minute. But no one knows, so you can keep it inside. Well, I can tell you, I talk to a lot of men, and I know. I can feel it. I can see it. And it's this process of going to the dojo and asking for help from people ahead of us. The ignorance to not ask for help. To realize, you know what, I just want to stay here on Netflix. I don't need that this week. And then 1 week becomes 2, then becomes 3. Next thing you know, you paid for a month of membership and you haven't been to the mat. Only when we go to the mat, only when we go there humbly, open, and vulnerable to the mistakes that we're making on a daily basis and be willing to ask for help, only then does your life begin to move forward. Only when you are humble enough to ask for help. No one person has all the answers. And life for men was never designed to do it alone. I've said it before. For millennia, men have done it in tribes. If you go back to tribal communities, as a man was growing up, there was always elders ahead of him to lead him, to teach him, to help harness who he was and impact where he could go in the community. But there was also always someone behind him. And it's this process, I call it the barrels of monkey mindset. Always having one hand up, learning to ask for help, and having one hand behind you, helping people that just got started on the crucible that you just finished. It is this process that we suck at. We are blind to, that no one teaches us in life, and society does not reinforce it. It reinforces the opposite narrative. But I'm here to tell you that asking for help on the things that you suck at and telling yourself different stories that don't actually align with reality, that are only aligning with you perpetually keeping the cycle continuing, that is why you stay stuck. This was a long rant, but this asking for help was something that came up with a call that I was talking to another dad this week, and I was inspired to share this knowledge with you and the passion and fire behind it, because it's something that I get really frustrated with, but I also know that most men don't know this. So now you know, what are you going to do about it? If you're inspired to go to the mat, if you're inspired to take action, reach out. Head on over to bencloy.com. There is a free clarity call waiting for you there in the top right corner of that website. Breaking the cycle requires you to learn from people that are ahead of you, to accept that they might know something that you don't, and be humble enough to be okay that you need that. Guys, that is all I have for you today, and I'll be back again with you guys tomorrow.